Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me live in studio, our town manager, Mark Ells. Mark, good morning.
Morning, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So, Mark, want to talk a little bit. We've been hearing a lot about the Parking Overlay District. I know it's kind of gone back and forth with the planning board and the town council, and there's lots of questions, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions going on, especially in the community at large. So, let's talk about this. If you can kind of give a basic overview of what the goals of the Parking Overlay District are.
Sure, I'll have to back up.
Sure.
And a couple of years ago, the responsibility of signing the licenses for open-air parking was shifted from the town manager to me at the time as assistant town manager. And we began to have a discussion with staff about the underlying zoning at the licensed open-air parking lots that existed down in the harbor area. They primarily service the summer parking and those individuals coming here to go to the islands on the various, the High Line and the steamship. And there were other issues at the time that were going on, but in parallel with that, and because there were issues with underlying zoning relevant to where those lots where licenses had been issued for decades
Right.
to these parking, open-air parking areas, the town council created a subcommittee. And so we were doing all the functional things like issuing licenses and, we have rules and regulations that are associated with those licenses and managing the parking from that perspective, both from a regulatory standpoint and in general. The town council was the subcommittee of the town council was looking at that, as well as wrestling with the issue from a policy standpoint of what's the best way to resolve this issue of, hey, we've had parking lots there on these specific lots, like I said, for 30 or more years, right. Yet the zoning doesn't coincide with it. Some people had special permits. Some people may have been before Board of Appeals for some level of variance. I can't remember specifically. But we have a list of all the parking lots. We have a list of all the potential conflicts, and almost all of them had some underlying issue. So it was thought that this would be a way just specific to those existing parking lots that have had licenses for 30 years to basically allow what's been licensed for the last 30 years.
So really not making any changes to the lots. I know there were
No, there's a
some
lot.
concerns.
I was at several different gatherings over the weekend, and this was a topic of discussion. And I would say the most concerning misunderstanding was that we're going to rezone the whole harbor for parking. So just think, there'll be parking lots all over the harbor, and that'll be terrible. And I said, where did you, well, I haven't seen it, I haven't seen the map, but that's how I understand this. So when I explained when I just explained to them what I shared with you, they had a better understanding.
Sure.
Now, I am not trying to direct people's decisions or feelings about this, only to give them accurate information so that they can make the decision they need to.
Absolutely.
And so that's the biggest. There were a lot of other smaller misunderstandings.
So essentially this won't open the door for the creation of more parking lots, but it will correct some inconsistencies that perhaps are
That's
in
the
place.
intent. Yes.
Indeed. And I'm thinking, when we're thinking about those parking lots, obviously there are ones, down off of Ocean Street, but the ones that I think of really are on South Street as you head toward the hospital. They used to be people's front yards or property.
Well, that's a different scenario.
That's a different
okay. And that's another misunderstanding. There was a particular name associated with those lots, but they lost in court against the town relevant to that. Since I've been delegated the role, we have worked with the family to stop any illegal use of lots for parking.
Sure.
At that location.
At that location.
And we continue to regulate so that if others pop up, we would go through a similar procedure. Obviously, we try to avoid going to court if we can just sit down with the individual and say, well, either come in and get a license or cease what you're doing. But if they won't, then you proceed appropriately. So that activity that you're referring to right at Pleasant and South
Sure.
has stopped, except for the one lot on
Yep.
Pleasant Street that is and always has been licensed.
Indeed, indeed. So again, the parking overlay district we're talking about really just strictly there to kind of clean up some old zoning laws, and that's coming back before the town council this week.
It is, and there's a couple of other issues going on that I know you're well aware of, relevant to a parking study that we're doing.
Yes.
And some of the discussion with the various groups that I had this weekend was, well, why don't you just wait until that study's done and see what the study recommends relevant to this overlay issue. And I don't know that it's going to yield any different information that would help people to make a better
Right.
decision on this. There seems to be a fundamental feeling from people that, well, we want people to come here. They're going to have to park. Some of those people who come here take the ferry. They need a place to park.
Sure.
Let's be careful in where more parking comes, and there's a lot of discussion about multi-level parking for structured parking facilities,
Right.
but and where those would go, and but if we come back to the specific existing, we feel that we want to manage this issue. When there are people here, they're going to be, or a lot of them are going to be in vehicles, and so parking is a good thing to have to manage. We just have to try to do it well. So I'm not fearful of that. I don't view it as a negative. Some people don't want the parking there fundamentally.
Right.
They just don't want it there. And even more broadly, sometimes they don't want the vehicles and the crowds.
Right.
And so those were the types of discussions we were having this morning. Lots of different opinions on it.
Indeed.
And so I'm sure this issue before town council will be fully discussed before a decision's made. And any information that we can share with our public or our visitors. I've had people from Nantucket calling me relevant to this and relevant to the parking changes in our town hall parking lot.
Exactly. Well, it certainly, it really is an interesting discussion when we think about, the balance between definitely wanting people to come here. We are an urban center, especially in Hyannis. We have a great main street. We have a bustling harbor. And so you want that influx of traffic, but you don't want it, as you said, you want to be able to manage it and make people feel comfortable and make it easy, but not always the easiest thing to kind of plan and manage for all of
and
that.
though during the peak summer we have certainly a lot of visitors and we have a lot of people wanting to go to the islands and the beaches, but consistently year round we really have a medical center, a regional transportation center, and a growing educational center right here. All good things, but with it come challenges like managing parking. And so, I've also had a lot of people speak and say to me, this is the 9th traffic study that's
Yes,
been done,
we have
and
heard
we
that.
feel like nothing meaningful's come from them. I wouldn't try to do a study that I didn't feel as though we would come out with some clear objectives and some things we can deliver from it. And I promised the people that I've interacted with, both our residents and our businesses, that this is going to be a document that they're going to be able to use as well as us.
Absolutely.
And hopefully it lays out where we're going here for at least the next 5 to 10 years, and takes into account all that we know and then all we can anticipate. So hopefully it won't be the 10th study that goes on a shelf and people don't follow.
Absolutely. Well, and I know that study is ongoing, and if folks want to participate or look more, they can go to townofbarnstable.us/Hyannis Parking, and it's all right there for them. Well, Mark, thank you so much for stopping by and joining us
Thanks
this
for
morning.
having me, Sarah.
Thank you. Mark Ells, of course, is our town manager. We're going to tell you a little bit about the life of Judy Walden Scarafile in just a moment, but first, let's find out if those fish are biting. Captain Gary Brown has today's Barnstable This Morning fishing report.